Welcome to Living Life with James, the podcast where real stories and real conversations help us to make sense of life. From personal journeys to expert advice, each episode gives you something useful, whether it's a new way to think about things, a helpful tip, or just a reminder that you're not in this alone. Let's keep growing, keep connecting, and keep living life together.
Hello, everyone. Today, I'm excited. I'm here joined by Jakob Gricar. He is a purpose mentor. He is a coach helping high performers kind of break free from stress and their burnout cycles. He has spent years studying the nervous system, somatics, which we'll get into, and deeper work of transformation and guiding people into moving from this idea of survival mode into real expansion. Jakob isn't just about quick fixes. His mission is really lasting change, which we all can hope for, purpose, and living with clarity. So please help me welcome Jakob.
Thank you so much for having me, James.
I'm excited to get into it. There's so many questions to ask clearly about your work, your personal journey. I even want to know where the heck you are in the world right now. Before we get all into it, Jakob, I'm wondering if someone can only experience you in 30 seconds, what would you want them to know about you and your work? Actually, let's pause. That's a big one. In 30 seconds, what would you want them to know about Jakob?
I would want them to know me as somebody who's really grounded and humble, and not somebody who's like putting oneself on a big pedestal. I'm here because I love what I'm doing, and I'm in deepest service to what I believe in, which is remembering who we really are. And as a part of that, I'm in the trenches with everyone as well and learning as I go along. And something that I would want everyone to know about everyone is that nobody actually has anything figured out. So neither do I. And I'm really excited.
How powerful is that? Right. Even though we're doing the work, we still don't have it figured out. People don't have life figured out. And that's why this is a journey. Let's just sit and accept that for a second. Jakob, listen, you are almost a viral sensation. I have seen your clips and your videos. People need to go and follow Jakob if you're not doing so. He has amazing content and it highlights the work. You have an amazing amount of followers, but people that are listening that may not know who Jakob is, we hear your beautiful accent. Tell us where you're from and where the heck are you right now?
I'm originally from Slovenia. Small little country in Europe, 2 million people, Mediterranean, Alpine, something you'd see on like Instagram pages from influencers, really, really gorgeous. Super tiny, not very well-known country. Right now, I'm in Budapest, Hungary, which is actually, it's an interesting full circle for me because I moved here when I was 19. It was one of the first countries I went to after I left home at 18 years old. And this was where I experienced a lot of really tough initiations, let's say. I was homeless, and that was the initiation into the journey I went on for the next 10-ish years. And now I feel coming back here is like a full circle for me, and actually chose to be here while I'm restructuring one of my companies, that everything I've touched in the last few years has really taken off in a really big, beautiful way. And it feels like coming back full circle in a very different energy, in a very different space. So
just the way you describe that sounds so beautiful and touching and impactful. Not only are you doing the work, and as you said, you're in the trenches, you're a businessman, you're an entrepreneur. I can't wait to get into all of the things that you're doing. It sounds like you're really living your best life.
I'm doing my best, and it's pretty good.
Jakob, anybody that knows the work, or if you don't know the work, we talk about somatics and healing and nervous system, which I love getting into these conversations. My question for you, if we were to describe healing, or as you describe healing as a nervous system flexibility, not a constant calm, can you give us more information on that?
Yeah. So there's this neo-pop psychology thing that is coming through Instagram right now, which is all about nervous system regulation, right? And
Mhm.
it's regulate this, regulate that, nervous system needs to be regulated. And to some degree it's true, right? We need to be able to resource ourselves when things are challenging and hard. But what I find the most important is not the nervous system regulation, it's the nervous system plasticity. So we're looking for this experience of life giving us all of life's experiences, which means also challenges, also struggles, also getting angry, also getting sad, and then being able to come back to ourselves, remember who we are, we're coming back to our center, to our purpose, to our soul's calling, to the regulation eventually, but allowing that plasticity to also be there. That's why I say flexibility is more important than just constant regulation, right?
Yeah, sorry, my brain is processing all this. I'm almost hearing you say we need to be experiencing all of these things, right? It's not just about, the goal of let's regulate the nervous system, which is important to do, but through living life in these experiences, we have all of these emotions, which are critical to this concept of flexibility. It's critical to be able to have these to, um, you know, quality of life, happiness, affects our mood, all of the above.
Yeah. And life will always afford you all of the experiences. So there's never going to be lack of struggle in life, let's say, right? There's going to be challenges and opportunities and these amazing places where sometimes it might be really hard and sometimes it might be really easy. But to allow life to give you that roller coaster is really important. So in that space, it's also allowing yourself to have the full range of experience. So we're not just talking about being always, Zen Buddhist monk, just
Yeah.
completely at peace all the time, but it's to allow yourself to get angry, to allow yourself to get upset.
Yes.
That's really where the range of human, who we are, who we're meant to be, gets to be experienced.
Well, and I'm glad you're saying that because it's almost normalizing that being human is going to have these stress spikes, but resilience is more about recovery speed. So we need to have these life experiences to see and highlight how we are resilient and how we bounce back from those moments.
Yeah. And in certain non-dual traditions, so I studied a lot of Jnana Yoga, the yoga of knowledge, we say one of the 4 qualifications is the non-attachment, which, if you're holding the rope really strong, if the truck is pulling the rope, when it gets pulled out of your hands, it's going to hurt. It's going to burn your hands. It's going to pull you behind the truck. It's going to just be a painful experience. But if you're able to just let go of the rope, it's actually going to be effortless, right? And in the same way, we have these identities that we attach to ourselves. We have all these ways of how things should be or life should look like, right? And those are those things that we hold. But life doesn't ever look the way it should. It's not meant to be linear and it's not meant to follow a specific identity. So the more we're able to just let go of the things moving and allow life to happen as it happens, that's where the resilience that you say happens, right? Because it's like, oh, we bounce back, right? We can let go and move on and create a new experience.
You hit the nail on the head. I love having a good visual. When I'm working with clients, I feel like when we give them a visual and as you just did, holding onto that rope, it just allows us to see and to imagine what that would be. And it feels a little bit different. And as you're thinking, I'm thinking of this term flexibility like an emotional CrossFit, if you will. It's not about never sweating. It's about the recovery and what that looks like. So I appreciate this description that you're giving. It hits home.
Yeah, and if you mention CrossFit, for example, you want to sweat, you want to stretch, you want to be in pain. You actually want to spend some time in pain. It's very natural, right? And I believe that majority of the people now are leaning towards like seeking constant regulation because they're already stressed, but they're stressed around the things they don't want to be stressed around.
Yeah.
So it's almost like if you intentionally go to the gym every single day, then when you have the game day, right, when you're actually like on the field playing the game, it's going to be much easier to play the game because you've practiced it every single day. So it's also like how much can you stretch yourself intentionally so that when the game day comes, which is really live, you're already prepared for the game that's being played.
Beautifully said. We want you to have these experiences. We want you to sweat. We want you to stretch. That flexibility and the sweating is really the bigger picture about our resilience and how we recover from these moments. That's the focus.
Yeah.
You know, you've healed. I was reading your story. You've healed from a chronic skin condition, and you've done it through a spiritual practice. I guess I'm curious, what do you say to clients that maybe have some concerns? What's the most effective somatic tool that you've used that you can introduce them to?
So somatics, in the way that I use the term, basically means tracking the sensations in the body up until they tell us a story, right? Because we can say somatics and we just mean body-based, right? Somatic breathwork, somatic IFS, somatic CBT, whatever. We can put somatic in front of everything, and it just means that it incorporates the awareness of the body to some degree. So what I'm doing with a lot of my clients, majority of my clients, even when I go into high performance coaching or business coaching or anything like that, is I use a body as a portal to tell a story. So if somebody has a cap where they cannot make more money than X amount, right? And then we go into the body and we pay attention to what is the body trying to tell us. We track sensations in the body, and it's like, oh, as soon as I reach this amount, then I feel contraction in my stomach. And then we stay with the contraction in the stomach and we're like, okay, what is this trying to tell me? What is this trying to teach me? And it every single time really leads to a traumatic event that hasn't been fully processed and fully resolved. And that could be the suppression of emotion. It could be a betrayal of self, right? Or it could be something more traumatic like shock trauma, like abuse in some degree, right? It could be an accident of some sort.
Yes.
So the body starts telling these stories. So there's no specific somatic practice that I would tell somebody to do that will be 100% effective when you do it on your own. But what it all starts with is just the awareness of the body. So the more one can be with the sensations that are present, the more you can start understanding that there's actually a story that is much deeper than just the one that's going on in your head.
You know, this is so true, and I can relate professionally and personally. I recently did a podcast episode with a friend named Tara, and she has a horse ranch, and I'm a big advocate of equine therapy. And it's so funny because what you described, I just put myself in that moment of standing in front of these horses, and she got me to connect exactly how you do with these high performance, moments where you're working with people and asking them where they feel it in their stomach, in terms of, capping out at a certain amount. I'm standing in front of a horse and I'm noticing something, and she's telling me, where do I notice it in my body? And then what that means. And all of a sudden it brought up a whole chain of things from my past just from standing in front of a horse, and it allowed the work and the healing to be done. It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah. One moment you're spinning in the story of like, oh, I can't make this amount of money, or I can't stand in front of a horse, right? Or I can't post a thing on social media. And the next moment, if you pay enough attention to what's happening in your body, you might be crying about something that happened when you were 3 years old.
It is so powerful. I mean, I'm almost pausing because there's so much behind it that we may not recognize. I highly recommend everybody gives this type of work a shot. I want to go back to this idea of you and your skin condition. Tell us a little bit more about that and kind of how you managed to work yourself through that.
So I was about 9 or 10 years old when I got pretty intense case of eczema. And I was actually born with rashes all over my body already, but then it went away, and then it came back, went away, came back, etc., etc. And when I was about 10 years old, 9, 10 years old, it came back, and it was all over my neck and my face and my arms. Wow. So that's also a moment where kids start having friends and girlfriends, right? And boyfriends and, connections and all of that. And I was really at the space where I just looked at myself and just didn't like what was happening. And I spent every single day just like itching, scratching. And it got to the point where I would scratch myself so much that I would bleed when I woke up. So I got afraid of falling asleep. And my mom made me cotton gloves to even go to sleep. Developed a pretty extreme case of insomnia. And as you can imagine, when a teenager completely isolates, has social anxiety, and doesn't sleep, eventually got into a case of depression as well. So I was about 13 years old when I was at my worst, absolute worst. And I just escaped into these fantasy worlds. I would read every single fantasy book that I could possibly find. because I would just like, oh, fantasy, you know, that is safe.
Distract, cope, yes.
Distract, run away as far as I possibly could. Dragons, knights, swords, that was my favorite. And I remember I was at my grandma's place, found a book that was talking about medicinal plants, read the book from cover to cover, just because there was no other book that I could get my hands on at her place out in the countryside. And I read to the last chapter, and the last chapter was talking about hypnosis. And that sparked something inside of me, some curiosity, right? I went into library, started reading books on self-hypnosis. And fast forward a few weeks later, I'm recording my own self-hypnosis tapes on shitty little MP3 that I could find back in the day. And I managed to put myself to sleep a few times, even with like having extreme case of insomnia. And then I realized I was just much more calm and much more connected. So I spent a lot of time in the self-help book, section of the library looking for these hypnosis books. And I just started reading other titles as well. So I started with Zen Buddhism and Hinduism and meditation. And next thing, I'm meditating about an hour every day. Then it's
How old were you?
I was about 13, 14 years old.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. Okay, so you're reading the self-help, these spiritual moments, and you're noticing a change within yourself?
Within myself at first, just inside of me. And then about 3-4 months later, my skin disease went away.
Listen, I mean, if you don't know, the reality is stress hormones like cortisol, they literally show up on the skin. So you are proof, you are a prime case. You know, I always tell people, you know, your skin is almost like your billboard, you know, the sign outside. It tells the work when your system, it tells what's happening when your system's overworked, overwhelmed. Right. And point in case. So what you were dealing with and how you were going through this kind of internal conflict, it was showing up. You've done the work. You handled it from a different kind of a different perspective, right? A different modality. And you noticed a shift.
Yeah. And it was so quick and it was so sudden that it just opened up my eyes and my mind to the whole new world of possibility. That's where really everything started for me as well.
Jacob, that's what this is about. You know, I like people to be open-minded because we're not saying believe or don't believe in Western medicine, Eastern medicine, and philosophies. We're not saying one approach fits all. We're not saying it's just about therapy or, you know, somatics and healing or medication management. It's really looking at all of these things and seeing what works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. The human mind, the human body, they're so intricate. There's so many different layers and pieces. And yeah, as you're saying, you got to figure out what works for you. And yeah, the body has also so much wisdom. You got to allow the body to speak to and just letting it tell you what it needs, not what your mind or your doctor tells you need.
Take it all in, take a step back and look at all of these. And it's good to hear you say that as a nice, gentle reminder. Take a step back. What is your body telling you? Somatics, we're talking about that. It often gets kind of voiced as, you know, feel your body. But some people also here in the US will say it's kind of like this woo-hoo thing. And there may be some people that are not too sure or skeptical. So how do you translate maybe body wisdom into practical, maybe everyday steps that someone can use?
When somebody feels skeptical about this, it's you can see me laugh because it seems almost comical, right?
No.
I do believe that everyone has experienced maybe stepping a little bit too far on the ledge of a cliff or a balcony or somewhere where you're just like maybe on a skyscraper and like you're getting a little bit too close and you get so close and then like your entire body just like
my hands just got sweaty thinking of it.
Yeah. And you're just like, wow, there's like this shooting, like, oh, panic, right?
Yeah.
So that happens not just when you get to like the actual physical danger, but that often happens for people when they think about somebody paying you a larger amount of money if you're working in a service-based business, right? Maybe you can imagine clients can pay you $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, but what if they pay you $100,000? What does that feel like in your body? And maybe a part of your body is going to go like, right? Yeah. Or like maybe you get a bill that you didn't expect. That one hits a lot of people, right? You get a bill and then suddenly your entire body just like shrinks, collapses.
Absolutely.
Then there's also like that message from your loved one. It's like, we need to talk, right? Or like you don't know where they are. And like
Happens
your
all the
entire
time.
body just goes like, oh God,
Yeah.
what is happening?
Yeah,
So
that's a really good, that's an everyday basic one. When you hear from friend, family member, lover, we need to talk.
yeah,
Oh, what's that about?
physical reaction. So I don't know anyone, when I say it that way, who can really deny that, right? If somebody would
Absolutely.
deny that they have a physical reaction to it, I would be genuinely concerned, because that means that a lot of numbing had to occur. What happens is, when the body isn't safe enough, we tend to run into our mind, right? The overthinking is under feeling, really. So when we talk about somatics, to make it even more practical, what I could say in that space would be, just see how many times your body has stepped in the way of you just feeling complete peace, right? When there's a situation that happens outside of you, but there's a physical reaction and you're not at peace, that's where body has a story that is different than the reality of things. So oftentimes, if you listen to what's underneath there, there's going to be an old imprint, very old imprint. Might be when your dad wasn't there when you needed him. Might be when your mom told you to put the painting away and you shouldn't draw, right? It's not, you're not talented, whatever that is. And now, 20, 30, 40 years later, you can't really put a post up on Instagram because that old story is still playing out in your nervous system.
Isn't it fascinating how it plays out? I do EMDR. It's a type of therapy. And when you bring something up, and I call it kind of like a chain link fence, you see how far it goes back. So to your point, I can't post something right now on social media, but when I go back and track it, it's amazing what it's connected to.
Yeah. And as I worked with clients, there's the things that are so seemingly different, right? Somebody is like, makes insane amounts of money, I'm talking hundreds of thousands, and then loses them like in the next weeks, and she's just like, where is the money gone?
Yeah.
And then like having clients who started their businesses and brought it to multiple seven figures and realized that the business was what made them unhappy, and suddenly they're going all the way back when they're realizing, oh, business became a way to replace that seeking of validation. And only when they actually shut down a really successful business for the first time in years, they actually feel joy. And they're like, oh, what was it? Why did that not happen? And it's like, it goes all the way back to these like seemingly small experiences that don't seem to matter that much. And they're like, oh, I already processed that. No, you didn't process it. You talked about it, which is different. And that's what somatics are. It's not about talking about things. It's about actually getting it out of your system so it no longer disturbs your peace.
Right, where it could be stuck, right?
Yeah.
Noticing where it could be stuck. What are some practical tools? What's something that, someone sitting at home on the couch listening to this that may be able to relate? What can they do?
One thing I always say is learn to listen to the sensations of your body. So it's not what are you feeling in your body right now, it's what are you noticing. When I ask people, what are you feeling? They can go into the story, right? Oh, I feel upset because that person did that. Or I feel so frustrated about this other thing. Or I actually feel kind of happy, whatever that is. But if I'm asking, what are you sensing in your body? What are the sensations? What are you noticing? Then the person needs to drop more into the physical body. So that's something that one can start doing, is like, what are you noticing in your body? Okay.
I'm going to take that further, Jacob, because I think that's an amazing tool. In my practice, I call it a body scan.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'll often have people lay down on the bed or the couch, wherever they are, and I have them close their eyes. And I think of kind of like a warm infrared light, just kind of going up and down and scanning from the toes to the head. And it could be just like a 60-second body check. But we're going to allow it to go from your head to your neck, down your shoulders. We're going to notice what's happening with breath, your jaw. We're going to pay attention to the body. And wherever we're feeling pain or discomfort or tension or anxiety, we let that body scan just sit there for a couple of seconds and just notice. So I love what you're saying, bring it to the body, but these are little tools, and a body scan could be one of them that kind of helps people notice what's happening.
Yeah, it's the first start to just start scanning it, and then it's also to pay attention to the wisdom inside of pain, right? The uncomfortable ones, because what essentially I see starts happening is when people start scanning their bodies, they want to be in the places that feel comfortable. I want to be in, the places that feel good. But eventually, for something to become painful, it already went through a lot of stages. So the way body communicates with us, it doesn't go straight to pain. There's a whisper that happens first. And there's a whisper in the nervous system. There's discomfort. There's an emotion that hasn't been felt all the way through. And then that becomes louder as we suppress it. We push it away. We try to numb it. We run away from the anger or the pain or the grief. Well, I don't want to feel that grief, right?
That's
And then
true.
suddenly that becomes louder and louder and louder, and then suddenly we have like all these pains in our bodies. So the antidote to that is to start listening and welcoming in all the sensations, including the ones that you're trying to avoid.
Here's another reminder, people: sit and listen. Take a few moments or minutes. What are those whispers? Because in today's day and age, fight or flight, we avoid. We learn different ways to cope, right? From eating to doomsday scrolling to watching news that could really affect our mind and body, all of these things as a way or an outlet to deal with what could be potentially happening with your body and you're not listening or noticing.
Yeah, exactly.
You've guided people kind of from burnout to this concept of watering their roots. So I want to talk about that. What does watering their roots look like kind of in daily life, especially for high performers?
Yeah. The idea is coming from Bhagavad Gita, which is the fruit does not belong to the tree. It belongs to the ecosystem, right? And many people end up chasing the fruits. So it's like the fruits here being more money or more power or more influence or more partners or more businesses or more validation, whatever that looks like, likes, engagements, whatever it is, right? So the fruits, right? And people tend to chase the fruits. How can I have more money and like nicer house, a
Of
nicer car,
course. Yes.
all of that. And the thing is that when you focus on like the healthy ecosystem, the fruit doesn't stay with the tree. The fruit goes to the ecosystem. So the purpose is not to focus on getting the fruit and having the fruit, is to just focus on the health of a tree. You being the tree in this case, right? That's why I always say like focusing on the roots, not chasing the fruits. So focusing on the roots means seeing what's in the way of you being in integrity with yourself and with the devotion to higher power. What is in the way of you being fully in purpose, in alignment, waking up with joy every single day, like actually living in that space of inspiration. And you find what's in the way, and that's the process of excavation. You
You
pull
know,
all of the weeds out, right?
yeah, and I would love to hear. So, for in therapy, we may say some of the roots would be setting boundaries for yourself or how we recover from things. Can you give us a few examples of how the roots are for you being the tree?
Yeah. So boundaries for sure are a big thing. And more than that, it goes into like the space of communication. That's one thing. Like where do you end and where does the other person start? How do you articulate and communicate what's happening? What I'm saying is here, the excavation is one of the most important parts, because you can't really see what you're doing and where you're coming from when the soil is unclear, unhealthy, right? That's what I mean with pulling out the weeds. So
Yeah.
the health of the tree and focusing on the roots actually starts with one, pulling out the weeds, the excavation, all the traumatic imprints, the toxic thoughts, the blame and resentment and unforgiveness to other people in your life, right? And then the other part is like giving nurturing things into the soil. And that means like, what do you feed your mind every day? What do you feed your body every day? Who do you surround yourself with every day? Who is in your proximity? Who do you learn from? I like to say like there's no worse thing than bad advice, right? And what is bad advice? You take it from people who actually haven't gone to where you want to be. Well, we go to our friends who are single asking them for relationship advice. And we go to our friends who are broke asking them for business advice, right? So it's like, what do we feed our mind every single day? And then who we surround ourselves with. I would say all of that contributes to the health of the roots.
Absolutely. I like that. And just so it this sticks and it hits home, I'm going to use an example. So if I am the tree and I may have some negative toxic friends, and I'm eating fast food every single day, those are the weeds. And I don't have boundaries, right? Those are the weeds. I need to pull those weeds out. And then the nourishing the tree would be, I have some really good supportive friends. I'm introducing myself to a new community of people that love and support me. I'm drinking more water. I am watching what I eat in my nutrition. I'm trying to work out and get some movement. And I am also setting boundaries. That's nourishing the tree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would say in the excavation part, that's also seeing where the toxicity is at, right? Because you don't just grow weeds, quote unquote, without having a soil that is fertile for the weeds.
Excavation.
So the excavation is the unrooting of the traumatic imprints. So I need to know what is happening inside of me, what the things happen to me. Why do I chase validation, right?
Yes. Sorry, my brain is trying to keep up because you're right. What I said is I'm pulling out the weed. I got rid of the toxic friend. But the reality is now we need to dig in the excavation, dig into the soil. We need to go further because why am I getting toxic friends?
Yeah,
why are these people around me? What's happening within me that is causing these weeds to grow?
Yeah. Yeah, and majority of the people tend to, that's not pulling the weeds out at the root, right? That's just cutting them on the surface, which is okay. And this is where this, what I see as kind of like toxic positivity in the personal development movement happens, which is like people just cutting everyone out of their life because they see like, oh, these people are toxic. I don't want to listen to this. I don't want to listen to that. Let me just, like just love and light. But in reality, there's something inside of you that attracted every single thing that you're having in your life. Having is the evidence of wanting, right? So in some way, a part of you wants that because it's getting a payoff out of it. So for example, if you never got validation from your parents, then you might go around seeking validation from your romantic partners, right? And then suddenly you ask yourself, why do I keep having quote unquote toxic relationships? And then a lot of personal development movement would just say like, no, just cut all of these people out of your life, right? Just set the boundaries and throw them out. But it's like, and it takes two to tango. So in order for them to be there in the first place and to play that game with you, you had to play that game with them.
Right. So what are you doing? How are you contributing? Let's look at really what's happening within you. That's the excavation. That's digging in the soil. Not just
all
trimming.
the way down, all the way down to the core.
Ooh, I almost want another concrete example. Does anything come up? Because I think what's happening is many people get caught up in, as you said beautifully, and I'm sure that's a trend that we're seeing, get rid of it, right? Just pull the weed out.
Yeah.
Have you encountered another situation, whether it's a messy situation or something that happens often with people that we can give a visual of the weed and then the excavation?
I'd say relationships are the best ones. And I'm going to share this one because it's also personal and vulnerable. And I used to move from one relationship to the other. And when one would end, it would be a day and I was in the next one, and it was only when I actually, like after my last longer relationship, somebody I was so deeply in love with, that ended, went through the period of grief and like these big waves of grief. And I got to sit with all of this. And actually, I was with my mentor. She's 83 years old, one of the pioneers in somatics. I was at her place studying with her in person. So I got the blessing of actually going through this exact same work that I'm guiding other people through. But she helped me in that process. And I realized that I used relationships in order to fill the void inside of myself. And I was just chase all these other things. And as I realized that, it also brought to my awareness that it wasn't just relationship, it was actually personal development as well. Every time I would feel the emotions I didn't want to feel and feel that grief starting to come up, I would just be like, oh, let's do more personal development. Let's get another course. Let's get another book, right? And it's something that helped me pull me out of my depression when I was 13. But at some point, it became an unhealthy coping strategy. So what I did and what I see a lot of people do is just replace one person with the other, or replace one addiction with the other, right? No. I'm no longer an alcoholic, I no longer drink, and now this person is just binging on food and Netflix, or goes into love relationships instead, right?
Or here's another one. As you're saying that, it's making me think, I'm in the gym 24/7, which some people would some people would say, wow, well, you're taking care of your body, and that's absolutely amazing. Look at you, you're cut, you're toned, you're fit. But really, what's happening there?
Yeah, and it's the purpose here is to realize not what is happening, not what are you doing, but why are you doing it? Because you can do two things. Yeah. And like, you can go to the gym because you love yourself and because you want to be the best, most healthy vessel for God to move through you and to serve people. Or you can go to the gym because you hate yourself, because you feel empty, right? So you just got to figure out, like, what are those unhealthy coping strategies? That's the excavation. Get to the core root of it, change that, and then you can still do the same thing, right?
I'm sure many people can relate to your story, Jacob, because I personally and professionally, I know many people that go through relationships, right? And so as you described, whether it's hopping or breaking up or not, those are the weeds, right? We can pull out the weeds, but the excavation, the going deep, is understanding really what's happening within you and what you're experiencing and where does this come from and how to do the internal work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes getting all the way to the root of it, to the core of it, moving it to the core, and then you can see you can still do the same thing, but from a different place, right?
Your journey spans from Slovenia to India to the Amazon. I was reading about you. I guess I'm wondering, was there a moment ever when your body said enough? And what did it teach you?
Yeah, and there was many moments that my body said enough. There was one in particular. I burned out after I built the second retreat center. The first retreat center that I support in creation was in Mexico. The second one was in Guatemala. I built it nearly from scratch. And as soon as it was built, while it was built, we already started getting guests, and we started hosting our first retreat, which had 40-something participants and some of the best fire performers in the world. Wow. I helped to pull together the whole thing, organize half of it while building the retreat center at the same time. I was managing like massive teams. And as soon as that, and then during the retreat, I was serving, I was facilitating, and to some degree participating as well. And as soon as that ended, that retreat, I went into burnout. And for about a month, I just couldn't function anymore. And my body just completely shut down. And then I traced all the way back. And I was like, at what point did my body start shutting down? And I realized it was actually months before that, when I was loose with my boundaries. The people I was building the retreat center with or for, there was just more and more demand, right? And I wanted to please. And I was like, oh, let me take care of this too. Let me take care of the bookings. Let me take care of the payments. Let me take care of this. Let me take care of that. And I just became so loose with my boundaries that at some point I ended up completely betraying myself and my body. And it just got to the point where it just completely shut down and collapsed.
Yeah, what a great question for people listening to ask themselves, right? It's not just about the burnout. Let's go back. What contributed and how did I get to this place?
Where did it start?
Where did it start?
When did I start dishonoring myself?
You know, as you say all this and I'm hearing about all of your different travels, it just reminds me that we don't heal in isolation. It's important to be a part of a group. It's important to have support and to have guidance. We are wired to heal in connection. So it's almost like that team approach in some way.
Mm-hmm. We get hurt in relationships and we heal in relationships. Yeah. And shame goes to die in safe spaces. That's why a lot of healing happens when there's group containers. As much as I'm a very big fan of working with people one-on-one, and I love having one-on-one mentors, but I do see so much healing happening in group containers.
Tell us maybe a moment that you've experienced where you could see someone really healing. or some transformation?
I could say so many. Yeah, just within the last few months or the last year, I've had people in my containers who struggling with the depth of depression, and like even somebody said that she was looking for a painless way to end her life, and now on the other side of the spectrum, having a baby and like being super happy.
Wow.
She got pregnant after the program ended. Then we've had people stopping addictive behaviors they've had for years and years and years. People talking to their parents for the first time in their life, in like 20 years, people talking to their siblings for the first time in 30 years.
Amazing.
So I see that through this work over and over again, actually, like almost every single day. I just had one of my best friends text me that for the first time in her life, she feels like she's a good mother after doing half a session with me. It was just a friendship conversation, and I ended up taking her into the session, and suddenly we're in like 45-minute long session, and it completely changed her life.
Jakob, you are a gift. You definitely have life experience, tools, wisdom, knowledge, healing powers, and so many tips and strategies to be able to help someone kind of navigate their journey and get them to a better place. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for the acknowledgement.
Absolutely. You blend all of these. People may not know what they mean, but you blend somatics with, IFS and CBT and NLP. We could break them all down. There are different types of approaches and tools, but what would you say is the most maybe effective model or something that you've noticed that helps someone's nervous system when their nervous system is collapsing? What's one thing that really stands out for you?
The approach of separating facts from the stories and just seeing that in reality, nothing really matters, and it's inherently the meaning that we attach to it. And then coming back to the observation of the witness of who's the one that makes up the story. And the same way as that's coming from a perspective of non-duality, which for me stands behind all of these modalities, right? We've got all these things that we put on the top, but behind it all is the devotion to some sort of higher power. And if one can come to that regulates the nervous system, that relaxes the nervous system, is knowing that you are not separate from what you believe in, right?
That makes sense. Yes. I always tell people, because we hear these different, approaches or philosophies, that sometimes, the most effective intervention isn't doing more and trying to say, I'm working myself through all of these approaches. It's actually helping the nervous system do less.
Yeah. It really, I would say, depends on where people are in their system. When we're constantly in fight or flight, or just like this activation, what we want to do is we want to relax, right? Yeah. When we're in a shutdown because we've frozen because it was too much too fast, then we want to do the opposite. We actually want to boost our activation. And as you're saying, majority of the personal development is wanting to slap more practices on the top. Yeah. And somebody who's already so overwhelmed with everything that their life is, now they need to do a morning routine and need to do this kind of journaling and that kind of thing. And it's just like, what if we just take it all away? Just take it all away. Just go rest in a bathtub for like 15 minutes,
And listen, I will say social media contributes to that. You're seeing all of these different things, or what works for one person and approach, and you try to kind of take them all on. It can be overwhelming.
Yeah, because the way social media and the entire consumeristic capitalistic society is made in the way that everyone says, because there needs to be urgency in the selling, right? So it's like, because this worked for me, that's the only thing that will work. And the best way to sell to someone is like, this is the best way to do something. So then we listen to thousands of people saying, this is the best way to do something. This is the best way to get to the result. But then there's also the pain point marketing. So everyone's like also saying like, you've got this pain and you've got that pain and you've got that pain, and this is the best thing to do. So now you have thousands of people mirroring your pain and all telling you different things are the best thing to do. Of course, it's confusing.
Jakob, listen, I would hire you for a session and a heartbeat. No, more than one session, but that would be in a podcast episode. Let's have a real session and people can kind of see how things play out. That would be amazing. you have a lot to offer. And listen, I'm a believer, and I think you can make a world of a difference in someone's life. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your background, the history, and the things that you've went through. I'm curious if everyone listening out there right now could walk away with maybe just one or two tools, something that you feel could really move the needle, so to speak, something that can help us see a shift. What could someone start doing or start using for themselves today?
Definitely learning to meditate and quiet down and sit still. Sit still, quiet down, observe your breath. Notice who's the one that's noticing it. That's the wisdom that comes from jnana, from the non-dual traditions, right? We've got all these thoughts, we've got all these feelings, and we've also got all these sensations. But who's the one that's watching it all? So if you can spend some time every day really tuning into the silence and the pause between the notes, right? The gap between the in-breath and the out-breath. Like, this is where a lot of magic happens, is in those moments of nothing.
Slowing down, pay attention to the in-breath, the out-breath, notice. I'm gonna challenge you a little bit. Somebody that says, I am high energy, someone that says, I have ADD, someone that says, I can't meditate. Where's a good start for that person?
Exactly in the same space. I always laugh at that because I used to teach yoga, probably about 8 years of being a yoga teacher. And people would come to my classes and they would say, oh, I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you should be doing yoga, right?
Yeah.
I'm not doing CrossFit because I'm not strong enough. Oh, I'm not going to the gym because I'm fat. Well, where do you think it's going to start?
Yeah.
It's going to start with you going to the gym. So I'm very high energy. I'm ADHD. I can, like, if I was in US when I was growing up, I would be put on all sorts of meds. And I wasn't, lucky enough. I was put on different kinds of meds for my skin thing because that was all experimental. But yeah,
so that person, what would you say to that person that says, I'm not sure I can meditate or relax, I'm not sure I can do yoga? What do you say to that?
Just do it.
Just do it.
I work with some people who are literally basically, I can see this over and over again in so many different people. They're saying, I'm stuck, I need more work, I'm stuck, I need more work. What inner work do I need to do in order to do this outer thing? No, you don't need any inner work. You just need to do the outer thing. Sometimes the problem isn't inside of yourself, it's just because you're not doing the thing that you know that you should be doing, right?
You go.
If you know that you should tell your truth, the truth to your loved one, because you've been hiding something from him or her, or however, then you just go out and tell it. You don't need to do more inner work about it. If you want to go to the gym, you don't need to do the inner work about why you haven't gone to the gym already. You just put your shoes on and go.
Sometimes we overthink things, right?
And we overthink things. And it comes to even the things that are tools to help us out of the situation, such as meditation, right? So instead of somebody just sitting down and starting to meditate, there's all the questions that come up. But what if I can't, right? And in this place, I have a permission with the people I work with on every single call. When I sign up a new client, I tell them, you're likely going to hate me at some point. You're likely going to project on me. I'm going to be very direct with you. And if you start wallowing in your story, I'm going to call you out very directly in the way that coaches normally wouldn't and therapists aren't allowed to. And if they start getting caught up in the stories, I do just that. And I call them out in exactly that kind of a way. I would love
to see you live and in the throes of things and doing the work. You, again, thank you so much for sharing all this. I have some fun questions that I usually like to ask everyone at the end of the interview, just a little more getting to know you. But I'm big on connection and connecting with people. And I'm always curious as to, the behind the scenes or little questions like this, what it says about people. So I'm going to throw some questions out at you, and I'm curious your responses.
Okay, let's go.
What brings you joy lately, Jakob?
Walking through the streets of Budapest and seeing all the old sites that meant a lot of different things back in different days.
Side note, please send me a video because that just sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. I wish I was there with you right now. What song makes you just want to get up and dance?
I have a playlist called Pattern Interrupt that I made for some psychedelic journeys, and each song is different, and I put them on without knowing the titles of them.
Okay.
So I actually have no idea about the songs that I'm listening to right now, but they range everything from deep house to devotional songs to more of the African kind of tribal beats.
Yes. Oh my gosh, sounds fun. What's your favorite comfort food or maybe a guilty snack that you like?
Oh, you got me on that one. That's gonna be a bit of a boring answer. Since I was 15, I haven't touched sugar, gluten, pork, alcohol. I've been very, very clean in my diet. So my diet looks essentially pretty much the same every single day. I've got like my medicinal mushroom cacao drink, cold pressed ginger, lemon with stevia. I've got my steaks. I'm very big on eating steak every day. The only guilty thing that is not that guilty is I have these really epic sugar-free chocolate bars.
Okay.
And right now I got pistachio orange and matcha lemon.
Oh my gosh, those sound delicious. What grounds you?
The work that I'm doing, for sure.
Mhm.
I get off these calls, of my coaching calls, way more energized than I get off.
That sounds amazing. I mean, talk about finding the passion and enjoying what you do and how it affects you. What, last question, if you had a book to recommend to someone, a book to gift someone, what book would it be?
Can I do more than one?
Top two.
Untethered Soul and
Untethered.
The Alchemist.
That's my favorite, The Alchemist. All about the journey, amazing, good book. I'll have to pick up Untethered Soul. Jakob, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for shining your light. Thank you for giving us the tools and the tips and telling us about the work that you do. And you are definitely an amazing energy and light. And anyone who is not following Jakob, please look for him, follow him, and reach out. And I wish you all the best. And I look forward to being in contact with you.
Thank you so much for having me. That was so fun.
Thank you, Jakob.
Want to be a guest on Living Life with James? If you got a story or a message that you feel can inspire or help others, message me through my website or DM me on Instagram. I'd love to connect.